right, we're live. Welcome, everybody, to one of our newest segments of the show, which is going to be Meet the Coaches, where you're going to have a chance to meet hopefully all of our Proof 3 coaches, unless they just want to go silent on social media. But hopefully, we're going to chip away. You've already seen myself, Coach Sam, Coach Henry. Now, we're moving on to Coach Bri. So hopefully, she'll be recurring on for everyone. So if you have anything you'd like her to chat about, since I got you early, you can hit us up in the comments, send us a message. We'll link all socials so you can reach out to her if you want. But today we're going to, as the title ensues, we're going to meet Coach Bri. We're going to talk about her coaching, what she's been doing, what she does do, and just before we get to too wrapped up in the questions, I want to know, because you said you had a busy day, what have you eaten today, and have you trained today or worked out?
Wow, good question. Good icebreaker. Yes, I'm actually doing what's called a resiliency challenge at my gym right now. I'm doing 4 days of different tests. So it's kind of like a testing week. I have been diving into what I call athletic bodybuilding. So I have some, sports specific metrics that I'm tracking this week, like sled push, farmer's carry, things like that, sprints. And then I'm also tracking some of my metrics around my more lifting resistance training. So, hip thrust, 8 rep max, RDL, 8 rep max, split squat, dumbbell press, some of the more traditional OPEX testers in there as well. So I did that this morning at 8 a.m. I had a little bit of a snack before that, half of an apple, and then my element, and then I had some coffee. And then after that, I'm on this really silly kick of doing rolled oats, but making them savory. So a lot of times people make oatmeal sweet. And I put half a carton of egg whites, some grass-fed butter, salt, seasonings, and it's like the thing that I crave the most after my workout. So I've had that, and then I'll have another meal here after we're done.
How are you drinking your coffee?
I have an espresso, and then I also have like a pour over setup. I did just a quick espresso this morning just because I was running a little behind.
You just do a quick shot, or do you add anything, or do you put it in water and ice it down, or anything like that?
If it's an espresso, I'll just do it black because I'm still like the person who studied abroad and won't stop talking about it because I went to Italy in May. So we had espresso, but if I'm making like a nice pour over, I'll put some, heavy cream or some oat milk in it.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And then the 8 rep max hip thrust. How do you standardize it? Like, do you have like a band or or do you just kind of go by feel, like how high you need to go? Or is there a way you kind of know, because in case you're like, I added 100 pounds, but I only went, 4 inches lower than last time or something like that? Or do you have like a way you're doing it?
This could be a little controversial, and I'd love to hear if people would actually talk about this, but I use a hip thrust machine at my gym and not even a barbell, but I use the same machine every time. And the way that you kind of rack it, you like pull these handles forward. I know that if I'm not at full hip extension, that it's not going to be racked. So I also put in a tempo control into my test. So it's a 10x2 tempo. So a 2-second pause at the top of every rep. And so I'll notice when I start to get to max, that last second of the pause, like I'm just not as stable. And so I can tell when I'm starting to get close, but for the most part, like it hasn't been too tough just because that machine helps me.
Yeah. I've used the machine a few times in some gyms I visited, and I definitely, the ones I've used have been really good. And I prefer they've had like a thick strap, almost like a weightlifting belt that you would use for like pull-ups or something.
Exactly.
And it's more comfortable, easier to load. You don't have to worry about it going left and right. I mean, if you only have a barbell, that's okay, and obviously it will work. But I bet you that's probably a better setup for the 8 rep max, or doing a tough set so you can really focus on the movement and not be worrying about 10 other things.
And there's an external stability component to it where like the pad that you're laying on is like an actual bench versus when you do a hip thrust with like just your thoracic spine supported, there can be some like margin of error there. But so I hit 455 today for 8 with a 2-second pause, which felt pretty good for me. Good morning so far.
That is solid. And then the rest of the day, just working, designing. What's on the list for the rest of the day?
Yep. So I had client calls, mentor calls. I had my workout, and then I had some client messages to respond to. I will, after our call, do some program design. I have this desk treadmill next to my desk. So I like alternate between sitting here and talking to clients. Then I'll go back to my treadmill and back and forth. But I'll probably do like an hour or two of just slowly walking and programming, some more client calls. And then I have a client that I'm doing an initial call with later. And then hopefully just relaxing and just recharging tonight. Maybe a little mobility while we watch some TV or something.
Okay. What shows you got going on right now?
Well, my partner has never seen Breaking Bad. And so we had finished a show called Animal Kingdom, which I don't think a lot of people know about, but it's like this family that does these heists, and it's like the mom, and she's kind of like the kingpin, and then her 4 sons, and they do all these like different heists. So then she really liked that. So I was like, well, we should watch Breaking Bad since you haven't. So we've started to dip our toe in, but the first season is just not really that engaging.
It's like you have to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah. I'm like, please just
they're
stick
good.
around.
They're just slow.
Yeah.
You can get attached. I watched it for the first time, and like years ago, and I've wanted to rewatch it, but the investment is so much, and I don't want to like go through it halfway because I want it to still be good. But yeah, that's a classic. I didn't watch the spinoff show. Better Call Saul.
And then they had a movie after, actually, about Jesse's kind of before Breaking Bad and after. And that movie I thought was really good because Jesse was a favorite character. I mean, how could he not be?
Yeah, he had the redemption, the struggle. Yeah, he was good, and the movie was great. I was excited when that came out. And I kind of wanted more, but I didn't watch Saul yet, so maybe that'll be next. Okay, so yeah, we won't get into any of the calls or anything like that because we'll probably go over some of that stuff. But general background, what did fitness? Were you like in the gym at 5 years old? Were you playing sports? How did you start into fitness, and then how did that transform into functional fitness now?
It's funny that you say that because I very much was like a daddy's girl growing up. I'm the oldest sister, and my sister, who's younger than me, is 5 years younger. So I was very much like attached to the hip with my dad, and he would go to the gym every day, do his little resistance training thing, and then go on the elliptical. And I would just like follow him along actually when I was younger. But that wasn't until I was like maybe preteen age. But before then, my dad signed me up for CYO basketball and swimming at the age of 5. So I started playing basketball, swimming, got really into that. By high school, I was doing Olympic trials for swimming. And then for basketball, I had been on a national traveling team the summer before my junior year. And I was traveling all these different states, playing in these tournaments, getting looked at by college scouts. And that was kind of like the peak of my basketball career, and also was swimming. So in the fall, I'd play basketball. In the spring, I'd do swimming. And that was kind of my life. And I went so hard in the paint with basketball. Like my dad would be like, you can't come in unless you've shot 100 free throws, unless you've made 100 free throws. So I'd be out there and it'd be dark and I'd be like shooting, starving, ready for dinner. But I'm like, okay, I got to get these 100 free throws. So then I tried out for the varsity team that fall, and the coach was like, you haven't played with our summer team. You've been doing all this national stuff. We're not going to start you. And I just, at that point, had already been kind of emotionally broken with the sport. It kind of just became a job. So I said, goodbye, I'm done. And I also was having like some knee pain that was going on. I later found out that I had a tear in my meniscus. So literally that day, my dad said, well, if you don't want to play basketball anymore, do you want to go down to the boathouse 2 miles down the road and we can try out rowing? And I was thinking, oh, this will be nice. Like, it'll be nice to not have to have so much pressure on basketball, all these extra things. I didn't know that rowing was actually more of a time commitment and emotional commitment. So I started rowing pretty much halfway through my junior year. And by the end of that year, I had a scholarship to University of San Diego. So, fast forward, I get more x-rays and MRIs on my knees. I have 2 tears in both my meniscus. So I have double knee surgery before my freshman year of college. So I'm about to go and, be this Division I rower for this awesome school. And I've had surgery. So I heal up. I go in the fall. I row all 4 years in the varsity boat. Kept my scholarship. It increased every year. Had like a wildly amazing experience. this was the first year, my senior year was the first year the USD had ever made it to the national championship. So we ended up ranking, I think, 14th, all said and done, graduated. And then at that point, I was like, well, I need to be an athlete still. Like, that's my true core and my identity. Because if I'm not that, how will I get praise? How will I make friends? How will I know how to fuel my body? Like, God forbid I gain weight, all these things. So at that kind of halfway through college, I found CrossFit actually in the local box by my gym at home, or the local box at home was TJ's gym, which I think you've been there before. And so I started after college coaching there and also competing in the sport of CrossFit with the goal of making it to regionals and then the games. I was an accounting major, which I know is kind of probably shocking for a lot of people, but I was an accounting major, Spanish minor. So I had this full-time job at one of the big firms in accounting. So I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m., go do my aerobic sessions, 30-30s, map one intervals for like 30 to 40 minutes, shower, take the ferry to the city, work a full 8-hour shift, come back home, I think start my training by like 5:30 or 6, and then do my resistance training, my CrossFit training, and then get home by 8 and in bed by 9:30. So that was like my life for about 2 years when Marcus, my previous boss and my coach at the time, was like, you need to choose what you want to do. If you want to be a CrossFit athlete, you got to make this a full-time job. So I did. I left accounting after 2 years, went all in CrossFit, moved to Hawaii and competed with CrossFit 808. I had actually made it as an individual 2 years to regionals, but then the last year they kind of didn't make me sign a contract where they're like, you need to be with our team. So then we literally missed the last spot for the games by, I think it was like 3 or 4 points. And then one of the teams above us got caught for performance enhancing things, but it was too late, so we couldn't go. So that was the end of CrossFit. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go individual next year. And I was like, my hormones were completely trashed. My hair was falling out. I wasn't sleeping. I was super inflamed no matter what I ate or how I changed my diet. So at that point, Mike Lee was like, you have to just decide if you want to be a mom, like you said you wanted to in your life, you're not on the track to be able to do that. So you have to kind of make a decision. So for 3 or 4 years, I stopped doing CrossFit, stopped participating in sports, went all in on my coaching. And that's kind of around the time where I really started working with functional bodybuilding and building that company up. So this was 2017. And so built my remote coaching business. And then the pandemic hit, of course. And then I think I started the pandemic with 40 clients and ended with 80. So I was all in on social media, was really, supporting the community and being able to work out at home. And then I moved to San Diego. And then since then, I've just been continuing with remote coaching, and I picked up sports. And so about 2 years ago, I joined a kickball team. And that was like the most exciting thing that I had done in years. Like, I finally felt like an athlete again. So I was playing kickball, flag football, basketball. So at least 6 times a week, I was playing some sort of sport. And I kind of found this identity again. And that's kind of where I am now. So I'm training now to compete in a tournament in Austin in October, and then also a tournament down here in San Diego in September for flag football. And I captained 2 different kickball teams, and I kind of kicked out basketball again. I just can't get into it like I used to. So that's where I am today.
It's hard to go back to a sport that you invested a lot of time into, because basketball's fun, maybe one of the funnest sports just to start playing and pick up and go. But it's hard to it's even hard to watch the sports because you're not thinking of it as it's not as an enjoying, pastime as it was. Maybe it just needs a little more time. But we got to back up. We got a lot here. The rowing. So was rowing is where you were growing up? Was it like a common sport people did?
It's a club sport where I am. So all of the high schools, all the neighboring high schools filtered into this club. There's only one high school that had it, but I mean, we were national champions year after year after year. So it wasn't just this I hopped into some random rowing club. It was like the rowing club. We had a coach from San Francisco CrossFit in there doing our like dry land work. We had to come in before practice and do like 12 by 500. We had to record all of our results in this notebook every single practice. And then we had to actually go do practice. And then after, there was this like optional mandatory like mobility thing that we do after. So when I was done with school at 3 p.m., I wasn't home till like 7:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm. So, and was it primarily like rowing in the water, or were you guys did you guys do events like on the ergs as well?
Yeah. So most practices have some blend of both. Like we'll warm up on the ergs, in the erg room, or we'll do a workout and then we'll go to the water. I'm lucky because I'm born and raised in California and really haven't left. The only time I left was Hawaii. So I've never had to row in tanks. So like, colder climate places, you'll have to go into this like massive tank where it's like sticky and sweaty and you don't get to have fresh air. But yeah, I mean, the water, it was kind of like 50-50, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah. Cause like growing up here in the East Coast and South, like in Georgia, I knew, rowing was a sport like on the water, but if I saw like a rowing machine, like a concept two, I would like growing up, I'd be like, what is that? And like, I probably would have thought it was worthless, but I had no idea like the true correlation that like a lot of athletes that are rowing would be using those. And, not until basically CrossFit, understanding that they also have, like indoor rowing meets and large events in colleges that are, training to do that, which I think is crazy just watching these athletes hold these insane paces for 5Ks and 10Ks on the row, and they're like just drooling and sweating and crying basically, but still holding a 130 per 500 for 30 minutes.
I mean, I could tell you some of the most like, even just thinking about some of the workouts that we went through in high school and college, it's wild to think about some of the things that I've done and like did consistently. Like I would never go on a rower and do a 2K now. I mean, some of that's probably PTSD that I may need to work through, but I just could not imagine some of the stuff. So yeah, it was a great segment of time, and I learned so much about mental toughness and grit, and that we are so much more capable of what we think that we are. And it's very common that we stop ourselves before we really achieve excellence, and that's just something that I always think about, and I'm always really grateful for rowing, even though I could never do it again.
Yeah, the endurance sports, like the feats are crazier because it's harder to relate to for maybe like a normal person that didn't compete in something like that. Because in a strength sport, like you're moving the weight and it's like, you hit an 800-pound back squat. People can't really relate to that, but they think it's insane. And they're like, that's crazy because they've at least lifted something or understand how much they weigh personally. But if you're like, we just did this 2K row in, 6.5 minutes, they have no concept of like the pain or what it really takes to do that. And not understanding that that's 6.5 minutes of that feeling. It's not like, it only hurts the last 40 seconds or something. So I think people can learn a lot from running, rowing, swimming, and understanding like what it means to hold those paces. Have you seen the movie or read the book, Boys in the Boat?
Yes, I've read the book. I haven't seen the movie yet, which maybe I'll put that on my notes.
Okay. Sam recommended it to me, but I had just watched the movie, so I haven't read the book yet, but it was a great, great movie. And it was cool because it was, around the time of World War II, and the Olympics were in Germany. So the US is traveling to Germany, and everyone hates the Americans, and everyone there, a lot of people traveling there, everyone hates the Germans. And it's, it was like a cool time, but it was cool, especially about the endurance, because it was, the JV team that goes to the Olympics. It was the guys that had to work their jobs. And that's the only way they could go to school is if they got to row. And it was their motivation that led them to, work harder than the kids who, grew up, because rowing was more of like like if you were more well off, you were like born into rowing more so, versus it wasn't just a sport. Everyone could just hop on the water and go on a nice boat.
I mean, the boats cost more than like luxury vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And then you do CrossFit, you TJs, you meet Marcus. What was it, getting into CrossFit? Was it like an immediate hook, or was it just like, I'm going to start doing this because it's perfect for, like making me fit for other things I'm doing? Or was it like, wow, like these people are doing things that I pretty good at, and I, like getting better at the other stuff?
I mean, you can imagine just the sheer volume of rowing that we're doing, like the same movement every day. Like we had 4-hour practices, they were just like same thing. So overuse injuries would happen, you're kind of imbalanced. So in the varsity boat for any NCAA team, you're rowing to one side. And if you row on one side and you stick to that side, the entirety of your career. So what would happen for me is I would like go, when I'd be a port. So I'd go to this side and I'd shrink this side of my body to get leverage. But then when I go onto the erg, I'm balanced, right? I'm pulling evenly. So these ribs on my right side would like pop out or like dislodge kind of, I had 2 fractured ribs that I just rode through in championships and I didn't tell anyone about it. Like this is just part of the sport,
Mm-hmm.
So when I would come home for the summer, I was like, the last thing I want to do is row. And I just got so down on myself that I just like couldn't find the quote unquote motivation or the drive to do it. I just can't do it. I'm so burnt out. Obviously now I understand the reasons why, but when I found one of my best friends in high school brought me to a CrossFit class, he's like, just come do it with me. Like it might be fun. And so I dropped in and there was rowing in it, but it was paired with other stuff. And I'm like, I just rowed, 5,000 meters, total in this workout, but I also did all this other stuff and I feel really strong. I like the way my muscles feel. So it kind of was an immediate hook, but it wasn't for the reasons that most people hook on to CrossFit, right? People hook on to CrossFit because it's the hardest they've ever pushed themselves and they didn't know they could do something. And someone gave them a sweaty high five. It's like, I had all of that. What I didn't have was the ability to actually control how I showed up, right? It was the mindset piece. It was that I was able to have fun with movement again. And that's something that, I strive for now in fitness is like, you have to have the blend of something that you enjoy and then something that's effective. So was CrossFit the most effective for rowing? You could argue either way, but at least I was doing something, right? I was doing something instead of just like, getting down on myself for not going and rowing. So
yeah,
I, stuck to the like 3 on, 3 off or whatever they prescribed back in the day, did that, I did the zone, I did the paleo, I did all the things they wanted me to do. I learned so much about just nutrition. I had never learned about nutrition of all of the years as an athlete. I didn't know the difference between like a cupcake and a sweet potato. Like it just was, and it's so interesting about that now. But I really do thank CrossFit for those things, like just bringing awareness to some of the things I didn't know. And then when I got back to rowing, I think this was my senior year. So this was the year we were going to the national championship. In the spring is when the 2K races are. Like the spring is the main season of rowing. So as soon as January hits, you have a 2-week winter camp, which is like basically unlimited number of hours your coach can train you. During the year, it's only 20 hours a week. But in winter camp, it's kind of whatever because you're voluntarily being there. So then I was doing all of these hours of rowing, but I still wanted to have a connection to CrossFit. So I would sneak into the CrossFit gym because our CrossFit gym our varsity weight room was a CrossFit affiliate because Stefan Roche was the head varsity weight room coach. And he was one of like the disciples of CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I would do my weight room in the morning with my team. Then I do my practice in the afternoon. And then I would sneak into the weight room with Stefan and go do a CrossFit workout. And then it wasn't until my coach snuck into the weight room or was walking by it and kind of saw me in there. And she literally hopped on my back and was like, you cannot be doing this. You're going to overtrain. You're going to get injured. We need you. You're in the varsity boat. She's like, you can decide right now if you're going to be a Division I rower or if you're going to be a CrossFit athlete. Because if you want to leave, you can leave and go be a CrossFit athlete. But this is what you're committed to right now. So literally the day I graduated, I was like, all right, I'm a CrossFit athlete now. That's what I'm going to be doing. And that's what I did.
Dang. Yeah, that's getting caught. But I imagine it was a big moment, like, having like, because she made it just one or the other, like the choice then. And then almost planted the seed because before it was I'm doing both. And now she was like, you can't. And so did you still try and sneak in or were you just like, all right, I'll give it all to rowing for a little bit?
No, I respected her, but I think it just highlights that the concept of recovery is so misunderstood in fitness in general, right? And so when I quit, when I was done with rowing, I probably should have taken like a week or 2 off. You know what I mean? Like we talk about the protein deload, the master cleanse reset that we've done, the OPEX protocols. Like I didn't do any of that stuff. Like I was so under the impression that more and more and more was better. And I think that's kind of the misconception that a lot of people face now. It's like, if I do more and eat less and do all these things and hard charge, I'll get what I want, where my body was just consistently revolting against me. And so I do think that most people can benefit from having some sort of periodization that's a little bit more focused. And that's kind of why I love coaching. It's because we can kind of debunk and like, demystify some of these things that we're told. So I'm definitely grateful now to have found the balance, but it's very easy as an athlete to like get down on yourself or get in your head if you're not doing enough or you feel like you're doing enough, which is something that, I work on with a lot of my clients and I still struggle with too.
Yeah. In a sport that's not like necessarily a skill sport, like, basketball, football, because you still have to work hard in those, but, skills are definitely a much higher priority. Like you can, catch a football, or you can, shoot a three, or you can, hit a baseball. But in an endurance sport or a strength sport, there's definitely the line of like, you have to keep doing more, because in order to succeed, you have to do more than the person next to you.
Right.
And you have to, and then there's, like you said, the recovery aspect. It's like, it's hard to tell, like, if I recover a little bit more, is that the right thing to do now? Or should I push a little bit more, because then I could grow and adapt to it? And you don't truly know. And it's hard because sometimes you could have a coach, and if the coach isn't there, or, or if the coach isn't that great, they could give you the wrong advice, or then you're conflicting. You don't want to tell the coach, but it's such a hard line. And more often than not, that's why there's only, a few greatest of all time champions, is because they just happened to maybe do it perfectly. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
there's tens of thousands of the other ones that were like, I'm just going to push through it, where they could have been a lot better, had they just taken the rest day, or reduced volume a little bit, or found a coach that could really help them, navigate how to be their best.
Or even to explain why rest is important, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
no one truly explained to me the value of slowing down to speed up. And that's something that we see so much with our clients now is they think, okay, I'm going to do my 2-hour workout. And if 2 hours is good, then 2.5 hours is good. And then I'm going to go for a run. And if, a 7-minute pace is good, then I'm going to try to go for a 6:30. It's like, I love helping clients kind of channel that performance mindset in a like repeatable and sustainable way, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I think most people have drive and have motivation to do stuff. They just don't know what to do when there's ebbs and flows in that motivation, or if they have something that pops up, like they get sick or a trip comes up, or, their gym shuts down for a week. Like people just panic at this idea and think they have to just do more, 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 where sometimes it's exactly what you need. And anyway, I'm sure we'll get into client stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
obviously excited to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
these types of things.
Yeah. It reminded me of like a client that does, like maybe they're just doing 5 sets of back squats at 5 reps, and they do 155 and they looked perfect and good. They're like, oh, well, I added, 20 pounds on the last one. It was like really tough. It was just, they're not okay with just having it feel good. And, like they think it, like you said, if it's not hard or not hurting, or, or they're not feeling like they need the rest day, then it wasn't worth doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, especially for the former athlete, they have to.
Yeah, or people who are really high functioning in other places too. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of clients that I work with are hard charging professionals, like really making a big change in the world. And it can be tough to slow that cadence down and believe that slowing things down or reorganizing things is actually going to make them better, when it's like, it's gotten me this far kind of mindset. And I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
can be really hard to switch. I mean, I know for myself, and I'm sure for you too with your fitness journey, it's like there's these ebbs and flows of like, okay, well, this worked for me then, so I'm just going to keep doing that thing. But you may
Mm-hmm.
be 10 years older or in a totally different stage of life. It's like if you were doing all these things when you were a high school or a college football player and you didn't have any responsibilities other than football, but now you've got kids, you've got a job, you've got to put money, food on the table, you have bills. Like there's just so many more stressors the more we get older. And I think it's really tough. Like that identity mindset or that identity crisis is hard. But then when you transition into real life, your identity becomes something else, then you forget kind of who you are. And I feel like that's where fitness can be really fun, whether you are an athlete or not, is like to figure out who you are and what you're capable of inside and outside of the gym. Because, like today I PR'd my hip thrust. I'm like, I feel like I can take on the world, but no one else knows that, right? No one else saw that. I'm not sure, maybe I posted on social media, but that's not for them. It's for me. And it's because of the confidence that I get and the empowerment I get from training, which then makes me a better partner, then makes me make better food decisions. Cause I'm like, well, shit, I got to come back tomorrow and I want that same feeling again. And then it's like, well, I better get to bed, with a reasonable hour because again, I want that feeling again. And I think a lot of people loved that about CrossFit because there was like alignment. It was like, I better show up to this class ready because if I don't, I'm going to get my ass handed to me. And while we know, I won't go down into controversial things, but CrossFit isn't as sustainable for most people who have already this big ball of stress that's weighing on them. Yeah. So it can be really fun to kind of create dream life ideals with my clients. And that's what I do a lot with them is like just create solutions to the obstacles they face and actually have them dream like, what kind of life do you want? How do you want to feel in your days? And how do you feel now? And then we kind of create the roadmap to your best self. And it's little by little, like tinkering small things over time. And I think that's kind of what I needed in that phase from going from like college rowing to CrossFit and then from CrossFit out of CrossFit. Like I needed somebody to be like, let's design your life. Let's just focus on these simple things right now. Because it's so easy to get caught in the weeds of like, I gotta do mobility and I gotta eat and I gotta sleep and I gotta have fulfilling relationships and breath work. And it's like, it can be so overwhelming. And just having like one person who kind of just gets you and knows how your brain works can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking there's the flip side of that too, is where things are going well in the gym and you do hit that PR and it changed to nothing. It like you realized you were attaching yourself to, not that you are, but like, someone who isn't maybe doing it for the right reasons or don't have it aligned right. They finally hit that back squat PR and they're still depressed, or they, or they are finally at that body weight and they're like, wow, like my problems are still there because maybe, they weren't aligned well with what they truly wanted.
Yeah. And you can think about it. People come to us for so many different reasons, right? The most common thing, I want to lose 10 to 15 pounds. I can get you to lose 10 to 15 pounds. That's no problem. Like it's, I'm not trying to minimize how challenging it could be for some people, but like that's not the hard part. Yeah. The hard part is actually figuring out who you actually want to be. And if those 10 pounds are gone, are you going to be that person you want to be? For some people, yeah. Like if you have a coach, probably, because we're working on all the mindset and lifestyle and nutrition stuff to get you to that goal. And then you're this evolved and excited person. Or you can just starve yourself and be super sad and overdo cardio and have no muscle mass and you're skinny fat, but at least you're 10 pounds lighter, right? It's like there's a completely different experience of life when you are aligned to your goal and the things that you're doing actually make you feel better along the way versus just the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then this will segue into what type of clients you're working with. So like, is there like a type, like the 80% of your clients are kind of in this group? And then I guess you could generalize and then, you could kind of get into more specifics of other, cause you might really like or work with a lot of, CEOs, but there's not a ton of CEOs in the world. So I doubt you have 100 of them, but is there a subtype and a type that you work with?
I work with people who prioritize fitness in a way that makes them better at other things. So I'm not training anyone for the CrossFit Games. I'm not training anyone for any big athletic events. I mean, there are events that my clients like to train for. Like I have a client who ran his first marathon this year. I have a client who's doing his first high rocks in the fall, like things like that. But those are just effects and kind of stepping stones to get him to his ideal existence as a human being. So I love to use metrics with clients too. So a lot of these like hard charging clients who just like go all in, like I love to work with those people if they're willing to trust me and kind of pull things back. But a lot of times they're, former athletes, whether they're high functioning business people, they're maybe I coach a lot of moms too, people who like really manage the household and have a lot of things to do. And then my work is to support them in creating these repeatable and sustainable habits that reprioritize their life to be prioritized on them. I think a lot of us just get so caught up in I got to do this thing for work, got to put out this fire. And then they forget that they're a human being and not a human doing. So I like the clients who are willing to take that perspective and are willing to actually tinker things in their life so that they can, in effect, be better at what they want to be better at.
Okay. So if you have an initial consult coming up with somebody today, and obviously it's going to change, I guess, and depending on if you have information, if you've chatted with them a little bit before through email, but what does that look like, and how does that kind of shape your idea of how you would work with somebody?
Okay. So this is a new client that Jason, our head of client success, has sent to me. The first thing on her write-up is, I'm just in a lull. So I love working with people who are like, I just feel like I'm stuck. Like, I see keto, I see, Orange Theory, CrossFit, high carb, low carb, like people who are just like, there's so much out there and I just need it simplified. Like, tell me what to do. Like somebody who's just like, give me the plan. I know I can do it, but I just need to simplify. This is somebody who's done CrossFit for a long time. They did something else for a little while. They just lost focus. This person, to me, it shows that they just need alignment, and they probably just need a little bit of support and accountability. This person is a mom. They have a full-time job. They like being outside, but they don't make time for it. Like, this is an ideal client because the first thing that we're going to do together is look at their schedule. And maybe this isn't something that all coaches do, but lifestyle design is actually more of what I like to call it, because when you have obstacles in your life that are inhibiting you from getting from where you want to be in your fitness and your health, there's these little obstacles, but a lot of times we make them feel like roadblocks, but they're really just speed bumps, right? Things feel bigger than they are when there's fear involved. And a lot of us have fear and not being able to get the things done that we want, look the way we want to. And a lot of times clients will come to me and they say they want to lose body fat or lose weight, but they don't know why. They're like, I just want to look better. And it's really because like maybe their partner and them are not engaging in sex anymore, and their partner's not, attracted to them anymore. So I talk to them about, where are you spending most of your time? How are your relationships in your life? What level of stress do you have on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month? Maybe it's cyclical. And we kind of proactively support the client to get them prepared for that stressful season. I also feel like I'm a little bit of like a liaison between like traditional medical health and then real, true, deep health. So if someone has an injury, I'm not a physical therapist. We have coaches who are, but I'm not. So I work as a liaison. Like I'm emailing with one of my clients' PTs right now, just to make sure that everything I'm doing in their training reflects what they're doing in their PT sessions. If a client goes and gets lab work, I can't legally interpret lab work, but the doctor can, and then I can support them in the lifestyle protocols that this doctor needs them to change. And then also a lot of measurable metrics. Like, clients don't know what to track. So a lot of us just use the scale, but we know that weight fluctuates a matter of like 4 to 6 pounds every day. So if your weight's fluctuating on a day up 4 pounds, you probably think, oh my gosh, this doesn't work. This sucks. Where that may create a roadblock for you. Where for me, I'm like, that's just a speed bump. Don't worry about that. You just ate a little bit of extra carbs yesterday, so you're holding a little bit extra water weight. Does that mean that it's body fat? No. Or you came back from a month trip with your friends and your family, and you're so excited. That experience is way more important than the extra 5 pounds that you think that you gained on your trip. We'll get that off. Don't worry. But this is a once in a lifetime experience. And so, I like to play this kind of advocate role for my clients of like, it's easy to see these things and get stuck and feel like, I don't know what to do. But really, a lot of us do. They just need a little bit of accountability and support.
Okay. So you have the call with this person, you're talking to them about their schedule, you're talking to them about their relationships. What are you looking for from them? Are you just kind of letting them speak and, they're telling you all their problems, or they're just like, this is what I need to do? Like, are you doing a lot of the talking? Are you saying like, hey, well, are you already coaching them in that process? Or are you saying, are you just kind of letting them vent it out and you're getting a good kind of idea, and then maybe on another call you would start that coaching process?
Yeah, the onboarding system is definitely something that I've spent a lot of time refining from FBB and then also in Proof 3. because there's a lot of ways to do it, but the best way to do it is the thing that gains trust with the client from the beginning, because this is a relationship and this is a very, very foundational relationship for a lot of my clients. So the first goal of any time meeting a client is to gain trust, and that can be done in a variety of ways. But really,
Do you tell them a secret about yourself or something?
yeah,
Like, I'll tell you something, you tell me something.
I don't even know what my secret would be, but maybe we'll circle back to that at the end and I'll think about it. No, I think it's really just listening, and like allowing people's obstacles and the things that they face to have the same weight that they feel. The closeness and connection that I feel with my clients a lot of times comes from an empathetic lens. Like, oh, I just can't find time to train. My diet sucks. Like, okay, that probably is really hard to know that your diet is not changing and it sucks and that you haven't been able to find time. Like, yeah, that is a bummer. Like, let's work on that together. So a lot of it is like, tell me all your obstacles, tell me what things have worked for you in the past, what hasn't worked for you in the past, and then what's that thing that you haven't quite figured out, right? Everyone has that kind of one thing that they can't quite figure out. And so the initial call is really just learning everything about them. I'll ask them, tell me your entire story with nutrition and your relationship to food since you were a kid. Who cooked the food in the house? Who did the grocery shopping? When was the first meal that you cooked yourself? You'd be surprised that a lot of adults don't know how to cook. And that's not bad. I'm not shaming them. It's just that maybe they don't have that tool and that skill set. So I can come in and be that person. All right, I'm going to have you try this super simple recipe, and then we gain confidence in the kitchen. Like, that's kind of how like the long-term plan might look. But the initial call is really just like getting a sense of, what movements they like, what movements they feel comfortable with, different training programs they've done in the past, any coaches they've had, and then some of their, big fears. And again, it takes a lot of trust to tell someone your big fears, but that's really what holds a lot of people back. So we dig into kind of their narrative around their body composition and what their body means to them, and times where they felt really awesome and times where they didn't, right? We always have that one picture that we go back to. We're like, man, I just looked absolutely awesome in that photo, So I'm like, tell me about that time. What were you doing then? What was your life like? And then, it's really common to hear people be like, well, yeah, I didn't have any kids and, have this full-time career. I'm like, okay, well, your results may look a little different. Is that okay with you? And just really like level setting the expectations of what we're going to accomplish together.
Okay. So then where are they finding the success? 3 months in, they've listened to you well. They've, like what changes, what are there common changes they're making? Or like, are there a few things with each client? You're like, hey, if we get these things on board, no matter, for most of your goals, like these are going to be the things that are going to really help you kind of dial it in.
Yeah. There's a variety of different metrics that we can track with clients to prove that we are seeing success, right? Or at least we're on the right track for success. And everyone's definition of success is a little different. So every client, I have specific metrics with them that we agree on that we're going to use to track at some level of consistency. So it's very customized to the individual. Some clients don't want to take pictures of them in a bathing suit, right, to send to me. I'm like, okay, well, you guys still got to take them, but just keep them for you, right? Or some people don't have access to a DEXA scan or an in-body scan. But if I were to think about what most of my clients do and use to track success, for body composition goals, we'll do a DEXA or an in-body scan once a month. We'll do progress photos at whatever level of consistency is right for clients. And I like to call them body composition photos instead of progress photos, because this is really a journey. We're not trying to necessarily get to one specific point with most of my clients. And so those photos will typically be done every single week. If a client's up for doing them more, awesome, but I want them once a week. And then as far as training, we focus a lot on progressive overload, which I'm sure is no shock to you, but a lot of progressive overload. So I have my clients log the results for every set, for every movement in their training program for a full 6 to 8 week block. And the thing that I'm looking for is that they are progressive overloading in some way. And it doesn't have to just be load. It can be doing more reps at that weight. It can be executing the tempo better. It can be having better mind muscle connection to the muscle groups that we're trying to engage. Or it can just be like you felt more confident doing the movement, right? If someone's trying to get a pull up and they just felt better in their negatives that day, I'm like, that's considered progressive overload to me. So that's kind of the training. And we also will do intermittent assessment weeks. So when a client first starts with me, the first thing they do is go through some of these strength and mobility assessments, so I can kind of see where they're at and make a training program that's actually, made for them. And then we'll take that same assessment week and copy and paste it to week, 7 or 9, whatever the last week of their training program is, and see if they've increased their either strength or their adaptation to training. And then as the lifestyle nutrition side of things, we talked about body composition photos, talk about in-body scans, but a lot of times I'll have clients log their food for me. And food tracking is a very, it's the most effective way to track what's going on with their nutrition and their caloric intake. But it's something that not a lot of people either feel up for doing or kind of feel scared to do. Like there's this level of like being exposed, right? Like I don't want to log the sleeve of Oreos that I ate. But if that client and I have trust and we know why they're craving the Oreos, when it happens, and I'm already in anticipation that that might happen, then the trust can be built and the conversation can be had of like, oh man, I had an Oreo night last night. Okay, let's talk about it. What happened in your day? What could have, led you to this craving? What was the reason? How did you feel after, before it? Did you have a stomach ache? Like all these kinds of just talking through experiences are helpful. But yes, I do feel like, with every single client, metrics are the most important thing, because after 3 months, if you look at your same body every single day, if we don't have a photo to compare it to, then we might not know that we're on the right track, when we very well may be.
Yeah. Well, a sleeve, that's not that bad. I mean,
yeah,
2 sleeves, you got to get into 2 sleeves before you start shaming yourself.
We used to talk about like the 10,000 calorie challenge. Like if I had 10,000 calories to work with in a day, like what you might actually do. And it is crazy. Like some of the combinations we've come up with. I'd be curious to hear what yours would be.
You'd have to have salty and sweet. So a sleeve of Oreos, then some like Chick-fil-A fries. Those are, a large fry is like 500 calories. Or more. And that's easy. Some sauces in there. I don't think there would be a huge problem hitting 10,000.
I feel like if you had like almond butter with every single meal, you get there quick, Anyway,
just a spoonful every few bites. Okay, so where are you seeing people fail the most? Maybe with the clients you're working with, or and I say fail, it might not be like they failed, but like things that they kind of may fall into that's common, that you're just like, hey, this is something easy we'll just get rid of, or this is like a major focus we should be working on because it will, it's going to interfere with what you want a lot.
Yeah. Clients get stalled in progress when they get down on themselves for having failures. Like truly, it's as simple as that. I tell my clients that there's wins and then there's learnings. There's no true failure in our coaching and in fitness and health. There's a true failure if you keep making the same mistake again and again and you don't learn from it. You don't change something, right? It's insanity. So a lot of times with my clients in weekly check-ins, I'll say like, okay, what was the win for the week and what was the learning? And then what are we going to do better next week? Or what are we going to change? And if you look at those 3 things every single week, I would be so shocked if you didn't at least achieve something after, a couple months. But I do think that and I think we'll have to edit this out because I forgot the question.
No, the small fails, like
yes,
like where, so if they're seeing failure, or not failures, more learnings, and it's them almost feeling bad for doing something. Like I ate 5 Oreos last night and I got mad, so then I ate 5 more.
Yeah.
So do you think that's the most common fail, where it's, they do make a small mistake and then they just let that pile into more because they just feel like they have failed, instead of just seeing it as, I wanted 5 Oreos, I ate them, I had a stressful day, and I ate them.
Yeah. Okay. I think the most common scenario that I see with clients that could be considered as a fail is this kind of fuck it mindset. And paired with that is like lack of communication with me. Like this scenario happens where, a client will have kind of a fuck it moment and they'll landslide into, I don't know, like a bunch of sweets and miss a bunch of workouts, and I don't know, something in their life happens, right? And usually it's an effect of something else, right? A stressful work meeting, you got fired from your job, you and your partner having a fight. There's something going on in your life that creates this kind of like, you know what, fuck it. And it's kind of just like a burnout thing, right? But what actually ends up happening is it's only really a failure if I don't know what's going on. If a client tells me, hey, this stressful thing is going on in my life, da da da, and then the thing happens, it gives me the power to go in and check in on them. Like, hey, I know, there's some stuff going on at home right now. Just wanted to check in. How are you doing? And that's the opportunity for them to say, oh my gosh, I ate a whole package of Oreos last night. And then, that means I didn't want to track it. So I haven't tracked my food in the last week. Instead of just doing my workout, I'm doing my workout and I'm going to the CrossFit gym. Like I'm trying to overwork it off. Like if it's when the connection breaks, that's where the true fail is, because we're in this together. Like the client is the one driving the car. I'm kind of the co-pilot offering directions and offering, changes and pivots and training. But if a client feels bad for something and they feel so scared to tell me, that's actually more my fault, because I should be open and empathetic enough. I should have been able to prove that they will come to me when those things happen. Like there have been so many times where I'm like in the middle of, a panic in my pantry and I have to text my coach like, okay, I am really in the shit right now. I need some support. That is actually where I do my best work. And I think when we get down on ourselves, it's not even our stuff. It's pressure that's from other people that other people have put on us, And so my job as a coach, I want to put on appropriate amounts of pressure to get you to your goals, but also work together out of that, right? Do you need to go do an extra 20,000 steps tomorrow? Do you need to go on like, a juice cleanse? Because no, like I want that communication and those decisions to be made together. So again, like that way, when the client comes back and they have another stressful situation, they have the tools and they know what to do to better handle it the next time.
Yeah, that's always the best message when the client's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I haven't eaten, I haven't eaten protein in a week because I was, I did X." And you're like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, right.
I went on a
I think
cleanse.
Thanksgiving is like a great example. Like around the holidays, I'm sure you and I as coaches, we work overtime because we're kind of this like sounding board. There's like all this pressure of family. There's pressure of these different foods that are like indulgent, and there's the good and bad mindset starts coming in, and it's like,
Mhm.
all right, here's your plan. All right, Roman, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I want you to eat a protein packed breakfast, do a workout or some sort of walk in the morning, and kind of already set your mindset for being this health focused person that you are going into the meal, right? Don't
Yeah.
go into it starving and lazy and drunk, because then you're probably just going to overconsume. We're going to have the same conversation again. So a lot of this is like, trial and error in the first couple months with the client. And then I know them so well that we can proactively plan for some of these situations. And if these like ad hoc random fires come up, then we are kind of already have like our specific plan together to navigate the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the preparation for those weeks and weekends and days are huge, because you can already have to start like telling them it's okay if you do want to eat this, but here
Yeah.
are the tips to make sure you don't eat 3 of them, or to make sure you feel good and you can wake up, because some of you might have work the next day,
Yeah.
um, and then, or they just go radio silent and you're like, hey, just communicate, just send me a message, just, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um,
just communicate. And I feel like that's the biggest part of having a coach, is having someone that's not your partner, it's not your boss, it's not your best friend, it's someone who's just personally invested in your success, and that you have to, as the client, believe that they really want your success. So if you come to them with all of your stuff, you work through it together. And I think a lot of times people, you know, when clients leave, I'm like, I want you to leave with so many tools that you don't feel like you need me. Like that's
mhm.
my main goal as a coach.
Yeah, a teaching, not necessarily just a checking the box and like a
Yeah.
mindless thing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a great like that's the one of the best aims is, so a year from now they need you less, 2 years from now they need you a little bit less. They still want to work with you, but they
Right.
are making good decisions and maybe just checking in with you like, "Hey, I was thinking about this. Is this a good idea?" And you're like, "Yeah, it is a good idea." Like you've been listening, you've been learning, or you've been researching now. So that's
Yeah.
always cool. All right.
Yeah.
I think we hit a lot. I'll save some of the extra stuff for our next episode. Where can people find you? What are your socials? Are you on the Facebooks and
I
the
am on
YouTubes?
Facebook, but I just feel like it's like the MySpace of our generation, Like I
Yeah.
still have it, but I don't use it as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all my Instagram stuff does post over to there, and my Instagram is Brianna Lamb, BriannaLamb. And that's where I post most of my stuff. Like a lot of my stories are just kind of like day-to-day learnings and education stuff. I post some in-feed stuff here and there, but mostly
Mhm.
my stories are where I'm given that, education and coaching.
Okay. So Facebook is for marketplace, and
Yeah.
Instagram is where they can find you. So people can just, if they were like, hey, I'd like to work with you, or I want to message you, have a question, is DM
Yeah.
good? Like, hey, I'll just send you a DM.
DM's great. Also, my email would be another great place to reach me,
Mhm.
brianna.l@proof3.com. If you have any specific coaching questions, I would probably go there. But Instagram is just a fun place to connect and say
Yeah,
you
yeah.
listen to the podcast or, yeah.
I'll add the email in the description as well. We got the website link so they can see your coaching profile as well. All right. Any other final messages, thoughts for anybody out there listening?
I think if people are listening to this podcast and they resonated with anything that any of us coaches have said, I think it's more than worth it to just do like a 15-minute call and just talk to the coach, and kind of hear what their suggestions might be for you. And if there's something that you are, confused about, don't be afraid to ask. Like, obviously, I spent this entire call just rambling off about things I'm excited about. Us coaches are
Hmm.
in this for a reason, and we want to talk about fitness and we want to help you. And I think people get scared sometimes to reach out, but at least for me, like I love when people ask me questions and reach out for help.
Yeah, same. I got a DM recently about about a podcast, and he's like, hey, can I ask you this question? I'm like, dude, yeah, I literally said it in the podcast. You can just shoot me a message anytime. And
Yes.
I'm going to do my best to answer it. I might not be able to write paragraphs on end, but that's why we're here. So I think that's a great place to cap it. If you really want to reach out to us, don't hesitate. No question is not a good question. Just or even a comment or something you're thinking about, you can reach out to us. We'd love to help you, whether that's coaching or just maybe giving you a simple reply. So thank you again for listening. We'll get Coach Bri back on soon. And thank you for your time.